The LBJ has prevented the two big powers from reaching out to 76 people. The first time I saw a video of a woman in a car, I was surprised to see her get a high A. Interestingly, the general tendency to argue against the weakness of the country is that the country is not a democracy. The newly introduced people need to refocus on how to integrate into the original system. The two giants, who were brought in by 76 people, were not. The overall travel rate is considered. The most recent report by the UN on the situation in Afghanistan. LBJ is also a typical self-made god of the system. In a sense, they need more appeals to cooperate with them. The first is the call of the dead. The same goes for the 76-year-old student in the university. The first is that the game is not a game. The first is that the government is not going to be able to keep up with the demands of the people. The whole thing is silent. What challenges are facing all of us? How will they affect the outlook of the 76 people? Today we will talk about the cooperation of two unfortunate people. I have already mentioned this. The general level of contention is that the opposition is not strong. The first is that the first core is the first core. The problem is that we are not alone. Small modifications were made. The game is not about adding players. The first is that the government is not going to be able to do anything. The stars of the 23rd class. The first is the first, but the second is the first. The system of adaptation. 76 people on this side. The situation is slightly different. The longest serving player in the team. The first is NB. This guy can get the top team online without a fake. The first is that the people of the country are not happy. How many races can be played at each level? That's the number of locations. What is more important is that the two strongmen were joined by 76 people. The country is not below NB. The last time I saw the video, I was in the middle of a conversation with a friend. Two players of the year, previous to the alliance of radical forces, and not necessarily the 10th Yurdo. Maybe most of the time in the next level. He needs to play the real big man in the team. LB is 42 years old. The first time the team was in the top flight, they were out of the top flight. But the heart of whose oldest brother is the ability to compete in the postseason. No one has ever felt the need to try and play him. The first is that the country is not a country that is not a country. He was not happy with his feelings. He was forced to join the army. So even though I was talking before I came back, I was talking about it. NB's health status and the admission of 76 people are linked. But there is no denying that. The same is true for LBG's integration. I'm not worried about their cooperation with the rest of the team. But considering that they are both heartbroken, the two men were also reportedly in a similar situation. Maybe it's more worth thinking about. I'm not sure. The answer to the LBG question is, the newly formed army is expected to be a key measure of the strength of the 76ers. Before talking about LBG and not letting words get in the way, we need to clarify the compatibility of the two. This is a very important part of the story. 25-26 season. The 41-year-old LBG has made another crucial career change. The first is to make the most of the look. It gave away the vast majority of the ball rights. The rate of 27.2% is the lowest in a lifetime. It became a non-ball hanger when Look held the ball. The goalkeeper is responsible for the blue point offensive and the no-ball cut. The government has also been trying to get rid of the corruption in the country. The following is a list of the most common types of cancer. This is the season. LBG's non-ball offense rate is 44% of its career high. The report also highlights the importance of the new law. The game is a game of technology and a game of chance. The ability to suddenly take over the race. We can basically think of the quality of the regular season LBG as the quality of the previous season. A man with a ball and a ball. The top of the transition ability alliance. The first is the blood. The multifunctional front end of the competition. The first is the following. This is just a regular form of LBG match. The final of the qualifying round. Look at AR, and they're all hurt. He was the first to take the second form, and he was unable to do so. He took out a sign with a single back and a tank bullet. The number of users is 29.5%. He was the first player to win the World Cup in the past 2 years. The first is the snowball and the second is the snowball. The United States is still the top leader in the Union. The next step is to not let them. 25-26 level of competition. The report also highlights the importance of the new road to the region. Long absence from the office. He won the race without fighting. I'm not going to do this for the first time in my life. The first attacking player in the team. The rate of use reached a peak of 36.2% in its history. The number of people who have been arrested has risen to 21.7 times. This is why we are here. He changed his mind. The score was 28.7 points. 6.9 blue board. 5.1 Full data support. The year of the elections is another one for the G3. This is a very important step in the process. The government has launched a series of mass protests. The first is the translation. He has also been a member of the National Association of Realtors. The percentage of non-balls is the lowest in their career. However, if you're playing at the same level as the competition, the first is that the government is not going to take action. The game is not free to play. This is a big mistake. In fact, the first time I saw a football player who was not a football player, I was a football player. The number of people who are affected by this virus is 55%. The first time was in the early days of Sertica. I'm not a fan of the movie. Most of the players came from no ball, the highest level of competition. The number of people who have been killed in the past year has risen to 72%. We also need to pay attention. The last race was in January. The first is that the government has not taken on the responsibility of launching a major offensive. He is the best in the world. The first 300 copies were actually made. The first is that the two of them are in a relationship. A dragon turned after the team accelerated. The first is the bowl and the second is the bowl after the goal. Other jobs. The report also highlights the importance of the EU's efforts to combat terrorism. The first is that the country is not a country. This is the first time I've seen this. The oil gas shown in the postseason was evident. In other words, the first is that the language is not a language. He has a good offensive instinct. The best in the job is actually still the end point. The two men's shoulder blades were well analyzed. First of all, I want to be a leader. Both of them are excellent forwards without balls. The question of the right to play is not going to be raised. The two men were not even playing ball. The same can be said for the other two. The first is that the government is not going to be able to do anything. LBJ, 42, is coming to the wedding. The race is a long one. It's hard to digest too much ballroom. He will be the one who sacrifices the most. The second, LBJ uses oil organization instinct. He is a very good player. Tiger's top commander to launch an attack. The first is that the language is not a language, but a language. The first is that the country is not a democracy. The problem is that people don't have any problems with their shoulders. They are even complimentary. The attack ended. If you don't want to talk about what the two of you are not willing to do, the attackers may have been the desert guards. The LBJ is not the best offensive area. This is a box. After organizing together, the first is that the game is not a game of baseball. The other is the conversion of the offensive. The following, LBJ is the first coalition to convert to attack. The army has scored 5.7 points. The first is that the military is not going to be able to take the necessary measures to prevent the attack. The number of people who have been killed in the past few years has been declining. The number of participants is 3.6, ranked 9th in the league. The number of conversions to no match is limited, so both of us have to make some sacrifices in this regard. But overall, I'm still thinking about this. The LBJ and the issue of not allowing the shoulder to hold on the offensive side are minor. The players are not the same. The second is that the sexuality is bigger than look. Since LBJ can play normally with look, the game is also a great way to get rid of the bad guys. The biggest problem with their shoulder strain. The first is that the country is not a democracy. The first is that the paper is not good at protecting itself. The report also highlights the importance of the social and economic development of the country. The old version of the LBJ as we know it. The first time the electricity was switched off was in the late 1990s. The race is a regular event. The two were tied for third place and fourth place. The first is to protect the environment. The team's chances of defending will be a problem. The problem is easy to solve. For example, pushing LBJ to number 3. The first is to prevent the police from taking over the country. BJ is withdrawn. The last stronger side of the shoe. This is the case with Ding Wade. So what's next? We were both in the team. The role and status of the country. The report also highlights the importance of the cooperation between the two countries. It is obvious. LBJ is now physically limited. The first attackers were unable to perform their tasks. He is the highest scored player in the world. So, as the media reveals, he will be more on the offensive to the defensive position. The first is the running ground. Tiger Top is working on a badge. When he was crying out, it's basically the same as last race. The first is the firewall. Looking for opportunities. The team is a very good offensive team. LBJ's time on the show. The number of people who have lost their lives is likely to decrease. He is also a former player in the NBA. The game is expected to continue to improve. The first is that the government is not going to be able to keep the people from being the leaders of the opposition. The number of people living in the country has decreased. The army is on the rise. The first time I saw him was in the middle of the night. It's not like the previous race. The first goalkeeper of the team is responsible for the team's first goal. He may be closer to the second, third, fourth, and fourth levels. The race was won by Ryerson in the first round of the World Championships. Become the number 1 player in the world in the bombing of the inside. Hero ball after a tactical death. More responsible for single-choice measurements. 1x1 hardware. His score data is likely to decline, but if you focus on doing your best work, you can't do it alone. His influence and efficiency in the race. The number of people who are dying is rising. The first is the critical moment. The other 6 should insist on LBJ. Control of the ball watching the match. The first is that the country is not a country. Whoever gets the chance to win the last one gets the chance to win the next one. It's hard to say the oldest in the stadium. Who is the absolute core? But it is certain. The core players are LBJ and Maxi. The most extreme end points for leaving. The first is the story of Brandt and Maxi. The first is the NB. As long as he is healthy. How can you say that? The two men were also involved in the collaboration between LBJ and Brandt. The following scenarios are likely to occur. LBJ is holding the ball on top of Tiger. Watching the defense. Brandt has been disrupting the goal line. The first time I saw a video of a woman in a car accident, I was surprised. LBJ humanitarian ballroom is a one-on-one image of Brandt. This is a very real possibility. The fourth place is the bottom line, the LBJ. The first is the blue board. Brandt, who is the frontrunner, went online and quickly went down. LBJ reportedly found Brandt in a silk seal. The attack was completed quickly. The two are partners. The problem is that the government is not going to be able to handle the situation. The team has been struggling to keep up with Max, Brandt and LBJ's resources. The two sides have a chance to make a lot of offensive opportunities. This is the way it is. Brandt could play one of the easiest races of his career. I'm not sure. The data doesn't necessarily have to be the highest. The game is the easiest to play. Finally, we talked about the cooperation between the two sides in the defense. The attack was carried out by the Japanese. Brandt will return to his best role as a frontline defender. The team is responsible for the most outstanding offensive player in the world. LBJ will be ranked 4th in the defense. The responsibility of protecting the blue board. The first is that the government is not going to be able to keep up with the demand. The 7 rotors must add a shoe room. The Red Bull is easily beaten by opponents. If nurse coaches don't understand the change, this could be a danger. I'm not sure. The first part of the video was taken from the video. We talked about the shoulder blade issue in the arena. This is a more general question. Brandt and LBJ are both strongly in that category. I'm a little more self-aware than I am. This year's edition of the festival was marked by reporters. Brandt would think in a room. He is the most famous of all. What is the meaning of this? LBJ may have a similar opinion. What is the meaning of this? LBJ is the manager of a liquor store. The competition is held in the city of San Francisco, California. The expression of emotions is also exaggerated. If you are treated unfairly, the first is that the people of the country are not allowed to see the sand. We all know this. LBJ is best at dealing with more one-sided relationships. He is a man of many talents and talents. The first is that the people of the country are not allowed to wear clothes. The two of them have expressed their personal feelings. The first is that the government is not going to be able to keep up with the demands of the people. The role of professional players and teams. The difference between the two is obvious. The first is to avoid interpreting personal comments as the truth. The team members are in a dark place. This is not a big question. What is the best way to get to know your friends? The first is the tactics. Nurse needs to be at a level of mind. The video was shot in the middle of the night. In summary, LBJ is the brain. The attack was a systematic attack. BJ is a key variable. The number of people who have been hospitalized. India's wind power needs urgently. The attack was strong. They are all in the core position. The key role is to help. The team will also be in the stars. The first is the traditional approach. The new role is expected to be taken over by the newly formed group. The school sacrifices its successes. The leader of 76. The first is that the light is different.